there's a story people in the wealthy district of Silverwood Heights still whisper about. It's about a billionaire who trusted no one, a maid who wasn't really a maid, and a secret that almost destroyed both of them. But to understand how it all began, you have to start on the night Lena Navarro ran away from her own life. Lena had everything most people dream about. She was beautiful, brilliant, and the daughter of Gregory Navarro, one of the most powerful oil magnates in the country. Her family owned private jets, luxury estates, companies that controlled half the shipping industry. From the outside, Lena's life looked perfect. But behind those golden gates, her future had already been decided. Her father had arranged a marriage between her and Magnus Redding, a ruthless billionaire twice her age. The marriage wasn't about love. It was about power, business, control. And Lena knew that if she stayed, she would spend the rest of her life living inside a gilded prison. So one night, she did something no one from her world had ever dared to do. She disappeared. No security escort. No designer luggage. No warning. Just a small suitcase, a fake name, and a desperate plan. Lena Navarro vanished, and a woman named Elena Brooks quietly took her place. 3 days later, Elena Brooks arrived at the iron gates of the most intimidating mansion in Silverwood Heights. The estate belonged to Adrian Cross, a billionaire known for two things: his unimaginable wealth and his complete emotional isolation. People called Adrian Cross a genius in business, but they also called him something else: cold, ruthless, untouchable. Staff members rarely lasted more than a few weeks working in his house. His rules were strict, his standards were impossible, and his temper unpredictable, which made it all the more shocking when Elena Brooks applied for a position as a housemaid. Even the head housekeeper, Mrs. Dalton, looked confused while reviewing her file. "You have a university degree," she said suspiciously. Elena smiled politely. "Sometimes survival is more important than pride." Mrs. Dalton studied her for a long moment, then finally said something that would change Elena's life forever. "You start tomorrow." Working in Adrian Cross's mansion was nothing like Elena expected. The house operated like a military base. There were rules for everything. Staff were forbidden from speaking to Adrian unless spoken to first. Eye contact longer than 2 seconds was considered disrespectful. Hallways had to remain silent at all times. Even footsteps had to be quiet. But the strangest rule involved Adrian's coffee. Every morning at exactly 6:30 a.m., a single cup of black coffee had to be delivered to his study. Not warm, not hot, but precisely 70 degrees Celsius. Too hot, and it would trigger Adrian's severe migraines. Too cold, and the entire staff could face punishment. For months, no one had made a mistake. Until Elena's third day. That morning, Elena prepared the coffee herself. She checked the thermometer twice, then walked carefully toward Adrian's study. The entire hallway felt tense. Everyone knew Adrian Cross was inside. The door creaked open. Elena placed the cup gently on his desk and left. 30 seconds later, the door opened again. Adrian Cross stepped into the hallway. Tall, sharp-eyed, impossibly calm. "Who prepared my coffee today?" he asked quietly. The staff froze. Mrs. Dalton slowly turned toward Elena. "This is her third day, sir." Adrian lifted the cup slightly and studied it. 73 degrees, he said. 3 degrees too hot. No one spoke. Everyone expected Elena to be fired immediately. But Adrian did something unexpected. He looked directly at her. And Elena did something even more dangerous. She looked back. Not fearfully, not nervously, but calmly, almost defiantly. Adrian studied her for several seconds, then simply turned and walked back into his office. And that was the moment he first noticed her. Days passed, and Elena quickly became one of the most efficient workers in the house. But something about her didn't fit. She spoke too intelligently, moved too confidently, and unlike the others, she wasn't afraid of Adrian Cross. One afternoon, something happened that changed everything. Elena was cleaning the grand hallway when her elbow accidentally knocked over a porcelain vase. It shattered instantly. The sound echoed through the mansion. Every staff member froze. Because that vase wasn't just expensive. It was irreplaceable. It had belonged to Adrian's late mother. And everyone knew how much he treasured it. Footsteps approached. Adrian appeared at the end of the hall. His eyes moved slowly from the broken pieces to Elena. "I broke it," she said immediately. "No excuses. No lies. Just the truth." Adrian stared at the shattered porcelain.
For a long moment he said nothing.
Then he spoke quietly. "My mother bought that vase during a trip to Florence." The room felt suffocating. But Elena surprised everyone again. "I lost my mother too," she said softly. Adrian looked up. "I was 12, she continued. "And after she died, every object she owned suddenly felt priceless. For the first time in years." Someone had spoken to Adrian Cross as if he were simply a human being. Not a billionaire. Not a boss. Just a man who had lost someone he loved. Adrian nodded slowly, then walked away. But something had shifted. Weeks later, Adrian found Elena standing alone on the mansion's rooftop. The city lights stretched endlessly beneath them. "You're not supposed to be up here," he said. Elena didn't move. "Neither are you." For a moment, Adrian almost smiled. That night they talked. About grief. About loneliness. About the strange pressure that comes with powerful families. And something unexpected happened. Adrian Cross, the man who avoided emotional connections at all costs, started looking forward to those quiet conversations. But peace rarely lasts long in stories like this. One afternoon, a sleek black car pulled into the mansion driveway. The woman who stepped out was elegant, confident, and clearly belonged to Adrian's world. Her name was Vanessa Hale, Adrian's former fiancée. She immediately noticed Elena. And later that evening, she cornered her in the hallway. "You should be careful," Vanessa said calmly. "Elena, right?" Elena nodded. Vanessa leaned closer. "I spent 3 years trying to love Adrian Cross. And do you know what I discovered?" Elena stayed silent. Vanessa smiled coldly. "He doesn't know how." Then she walked away, leaving Elena with a warning that lingered in her mind. But the biggest twist was still waiting. 2 weeks later, an elderly woman arrived at the mansion, asking for Elena. Mrs. Dalton reluctantly allowed her inside. The woman looked at Elena and gasped. "Lena, what are you doing here?" The room went silent. Adrian had just walked into the hallway. "Lena," he repeated slowly. The woman turned toward him nervously. "You don't know?" And just like that, the truth exploded. Elena Brooks didn't exist. Her real name was Lena Navarro, daughter of billionaire industrialist Gregory Navarro, one of the richest families in the country. The maid Adrian had been talking to was actually part of the elite world he belonged to. Adrian felt something he hadn't expected. Betrayal. "You lied to me," he said quietly. Lena shook her head. "I hid the truth." "There's a difference." But Adrian wasn't ready to hear it. That night, he asked her to leave the mansion. And Lena walked away, without arguing. The mansion changed after that. Adrian became distracted. Meetings were canceled. Employees whispered about his mood. Even the coffee, once prepared perfectly every morning, was now wrong. Always wrong. His best friend finally confronted him. "You know she didn't lie to manipulate you," he said. "She was running for her life." And then Adrian learned the full story. Lena's father had been forcing her to marry Magnus Redding to secure a business empire worth billions. If she returned home, the marriage would happen immediately. And Adrian suddenly realized something terrifying. He hadn't just sent Lena away. He had sent her back into a trap. So Adrian Cross did something no one expected. He went looking for her. But he wasn't the only one. Lena's father had already found her. When Adrian arrived, Gregory Navarro was demanding she return home. "You belong to this family," the man said coldly. "You don't get to choose your future." But Adrian stepped forward. "She does." Gregory laughed. "You think you can interfere in my family's affairs?" Adrian didn't argue. He simply made a phone call. Minutes later, Gregory's phone rang. His expression slowly changed. Because Adrian had just transferred $20 million to settle the contract tying Lena's family to Magnus Redding. The marriage deal was finished. Lena was free. For the first time in her life, her future belonged entirely to her. A week later, Adrian finally visited Lena at her small apartment in Harbor District.
There were no bodyguards.
No luxury cars. Just him. I was angry, he admitted. But not because you were rich. Lena folded her arms. Then why? Adrian took a deep breath. Because you were the only person who ever treated me like I wasn't. Silence filled the room. Then Adrian said something that surprised even himself. Come back. Lena raised an eyebrow. As your maid? Adrian shook his head. As my equal. Weeks later, they stood together again on the mansion rooftop where their strange friendship had begun. The city lights shimmered across the skyline. Adrian looked at her and said something that would become legendary among the staff who worked in that house. The best thing that ever entered my gates didn't arrive in a limousine. He smiled slightly. She walked in carrying a mop. And that's the story people in Silverwood Heights still talk about. The billionaire who finally opened his heart. And the maid who was never really a maid at all.